Sorry,
Yeah.
didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
there.
no, no, you're
go
fine.
for it.
Just kind of taking a look at it back and forth.
So everything that we found first, I pretty much think definitely is a rock now. But then it changes for different people as well. So Mike, I'll come back on and Mike will show me something.
Rock. Hold on a sec.
Rock.
That he's,
Big rock.
yeah.
We want to see the thing at the edge, yeah.
Yeah.
It's rock.
Yeah, I see that. Is that what it is?
Are we sure that's a rock?
No, not positive, but you can see the trend in the side scan that there was this ridge-like feature.
Right.
Yeah.
That's coming over
yeah,
towards
now
us.
it's towards. So that would indicate that perhaps it's geologic in origin.
Not much geology flying through the air.
No.
Especially in 1938. Was that 81 or 85 years ago? 81?
81.
Yeah.
Yep.
My dad was alive then.
81 years ago?
Yeah, he's 83 now.
Oh, nice. Shout out to the Texas Archaeological Society member joining us.
Oh, great.
They have a question about Argus. Does Argus have any hydrostatic or hydraulic systems on it? I don't believe so.
A summer question.
Negative. Argus now and when it's attached to Hercules is fully electric. It's got electric thrusters and electric lights and camera. Nothing has hydraulic, but Hercules, on the other hand, I'm sure as you know, is. And he'll be tethered hopefully shortly in the next fill-in-the-blank hours.
Argus has a hydrostatically activated sonar tilt mechanism.
Also has a tilt camera, chain driven.
That's
Just
electric.
chain driven,
Electric.
yeah.
Chain driven.
Are any of those lights on Argus incandescent or LED?
They're obviously incandescent.
Yes, they're both.
They're
They're
actually
both.
Edison lights? What you're seeing right now?
Flame. Just open flame.
Directed with mirrors a la original Shakespeare.
That's Inky looking at the gauge there for camera 5. And then there's an Inky, as we call it, looking at the fin, camera 2. And then the cathects are LED. Well,
Yeah. Cathects are LED. Those are the ones that are basically seeing illuminating the screen.
Cathix, C-A-T-H-I-C-S?
CATHX.
CATHX.
Gotcha.
To confirm.
You sound very sure up there.
There's a Y in there. I
Oh.
think there's a Y before the X.
Kathy X.
Okay, gotcha. Yesterday
Very
I was
sweet,
working on a
Kathy.
dive report, and I was trying to search up Cathix, and I was just getting completely lost.
Yeah, there's just, I guess the manufacturer of the lights
Gotcha.
that you're seeing are from the Argus view. So we actually have one of them off right now. There's 3 of them that face down, and one of them is creating a little bit of noise for our side scan, so we have secured it, as in turned it off.
I thought there was 4 that face down.
Bridge now.
Negative.
Can we proceed to the selected target? Thank you.
Has DSPL put cathects out of business yet, or are they still hanging in there?
I don't.
I don't know. I don't have a Catholic shirt, I'll tell you that.
That sums
Which is
it
why
up.
they're doing
Yes.
so poorly.
Don't
I
have
don't
enough
know
swag.
anything about that.
Rennie, they need you.
So, yeah.
I did just look it up. It looks like their website's still up. And it
If you want the real deal,
is it
check
Y?
out
It's
DSPL's.
CATH or CATHX, so no Y.
CATH. Okay, so it is.
Check out DSPL's website.
DSP and L.
Deep sea power and light.
That's where all the cool kids are getting their toys now.
And shirts.
And hats.
And hats and stickers.
Including Nautilus, we have a flash new 4K camera mounted on Hercules.
We tested that prototype 2 years ago for them.
Oh yeah, they down in Mexico.
Yep.
They
I remember that.
yeah.
Killing
They
me,
drive
we're
down.
not looking at it right now.
Well, it's an offline conversation. Disregard.
Usually do, so.
Burnt.
But a burn.
I'll pay for that later.
Do we have enough light for that 4K camera in? Or is it just going to be another HD light hog with not enough light to illuminate the scene properly?
4K has less requirement for light.
Less?
More
than this is?
stops. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
more latitude. However, all commercially available 4K cameras for deep sea use a single chip sensor and are limited to 30 progressive frames per second. So you get a lot of motion artifacting if you're moving around in fluid, and then when you stop moving, everything will snap into focus. So you're getting spatial resolution at the expense of temporal resolution.
Yeah, 12.8.
Is it possible to
12.8 tension.
have a good blend of both,
Yeah,
or is the technology just not there yet?
It's the physics. So data is heat, and so you are, think about this. So the cameras we're using now, the uncompressed signal from the cameras is 1.5 gigabits per second, 1.485 gigabits per second without the ancillary data. And 4K cameras are either 6 gigabits per second or 12 gigabits per second. At 12 gigabits, you can get 60 frames per second. But you're generating a lot of heat to do that. These cameras are in obviously sealed containers, and so you don't really have a way to dissipate the heat. The housings are made out of titanium, which is a very, very strong material, but also almost non-conductive.
Very poor heat
So
sink.
it's really difficult to get a great 4K camera to the bottom of the ocean.
So right
We
now,
are not just sitting back and waiting and seeing what the market does and hoping somebody makes it. The problem really is it's a commercial problem. If you made the world's best deep sea 4K camera, and it would be impossible for anybody to make one better than that, you would spend about $350,000 to make the first one. And if you were wildly successful, just like everybody was snatching these up, you would sell 8.
Maybe.
Maybe. Probably
My guess
6.
would be 6, yeah.
4 or 6.
Yeah.
And so the economics just aren't there to invest all. And that cost to you is if you didn't run into any unsolvable problems and had to backtrack. So the R&D costs are pretty
Astronomical.
heavy. Yeah, and you need an optics team, you need an electrical team, you have to buy the sensor, you have to buy the lens, you have to convert that, get that to fiber, you have to somehow deal with that heat issue. You've got, there are some great, just amazing cameras. We've been working on this for 5 years now, and working closely with camera and lens manufacturers, you name it. I'm speaking about, this is just very, very broad we.
Very nebulous.
And most of the cameras, including ones that are used in studios and sports,
I
etc.,
think so, yeah.
that can do that high frame rate, have the camera, and within 3 to 5 meters of that camera, there needs to be a box that's quite large, and that's where all the processing is happening.
We can log this as the end of the line.
You
for
can't
Thank you for
side
that.
scan.
get that signal, you know, here.
Still might have a
It
little
has
bit
to
of
go
forward, but
7,500 meters. Because no matter how deep the ROV is, it still goes through all the cable on the winch. So it's not a problem that's been solved yet, but not without effort. And we're fielding, you know, what's commercially available, so that we can get, you know, work around those issues. We can develop a workflow for getting fantastic images by eliminating some of those problems, by not being, you know, suspended in fluid, by setting down, by not zooming, by getting static shots. We're really hoping to push that technology. Part of the mission of OET is to develop and implement new technology and train the next generation of technicians and scientists and engineers to use it. So that's why we're starting to field this. So it has not been wet yet. So still a lot of proof of concept. In the control van, if you look, our 4K equipment, there's a converter up top, and then there's just a dedicated row of 4K processing and recording equipment.
So that's all.
Yeah.
Wow.
So even though the temperature down there is like 2 degrees, 3 degrees Celsius, whatever, and versus if camera was up here, it really wouldn't even be different in the inside? I mean...
Yeah, I mean, you...
Because it's such
inside the thing, yeah, if you had nothing in that container, it would still be cool. But when you put something in that's air-cooled and it runs at about 40 degrees C.
Even though it's in a titanium thing in 3 degrees Celsius water, it's not even seeing
Titanium doesn't
not at all?
conduct that, no.
Wow, that's crazy.
No. Make that a copper housing, and now we're talking. And this is not a unique problem to the deep sea.
Yeah.
They've resolved it for the most part, but it's still a known issue that if you're shooting 4K in a warm area, your camera's going to overheat in air.
Yeah.
You know, not even sealed, just standing in the middle of a field.
So Ed, you mentioned 30 frames per second as the 4K. What's what is our current HD camera shoot?
Our current camera, this is going to get a little technical. So we're getting 60 images a second, but each image is a half of the resolution. So they're what's called interlaced frames. So we only scan the odd number frames in 1/60th of a second. Then we do the even number ones in the next 60th, and blended together, they appear to your eye as a frame.
Oh.
So that's the difference when you hear somebody say 60i versus 30p. The I means we have to grab two fields and do a little gag to present them as one. And P means it's progressive. We start at one and we work all the way up to the last line. And we grab that frame at once.
Is all the data being stored though? Like all those so that's all still being stored. We're just seeing.
Yeah, it's all. So, however, it means that we're looking at something 60 times a second. So I have some great example footage where we're using associates are using a camera with similar specifications to this one, this 4K camera, and they're on an ROV that's floating in fluid, and they're shooting a grid of a secondary node, a platform, and zooming on it, and it's just noise all over. It's got a single chip. Single chip can't resolve non-straight lines. They can't anti-alias. Like a 3-chip camera can, where there's a chip devoted to red, one devoted to green, one devoted to blue. Those are great at anti-aliasing. So there's technical problems. It's
seems like it.
I know people are like, but my phone can shoot. Well, it's, yeah.
Not the same.
Not the same.
Not the same level.
My phone has 3 cameras in it.
Yeah.
Summer, maybe you could change to 225.
Roger.
Maybe it has 2. I forget which model this one was. Only 2.
And so we'll have a ton more information on that in the next month. We are, not transmitting anything in 4K. We'll continue to process it and store it in 4K, but we'll also down convert it to normal HD. It's not unusual for, at least in the video realm, for us to lag 3 to 5 or more years behind industry.
We went through this whole curve when we went from 3-chip to HD.
Yeah.
And it was painful.
Yeah.
What? I have to bring a hard drive?
Yeah, you could, you know, the costs are coming down. It wouldn't be unusual for somebody to go out when these cameras first came out and spend $125,000 on a HD video camera.
Ouch.
If you see the size of these cameras and the amount of engineering that goes into them, that's a pretty reasonable price.
Can we
Ed,
proceed to
why
the
can't I
selected
just put
target?
a Hero
You can,
Sessions in a
change your
can
heading as you need.
with a water-corrected dome on it?
Well, it's the geometric distortion that you're not solving for. And
Even with a water-corrected lens?
That's the whole, not at all. That's the whole thing with trying to do this for science is we don't just want an image. We want to be able to know exactly what that, you know, plane or that organism looks like. So we have to correct for geometric distortion. There's distortion that happens in the air-water interface that you have to correct for. And it's not, and you also can't use a flat port. A flat port just has horrendous distortion. So you have to use a dome, and then that dome on the back side of it has to have a puck, which is typically about 1.5 to 2 inches thick, that corrects for that distortion. And that requires a lot of optical engineers.
A diopter, is that?
Yeah. Yeah. Have you taken you've taken these apart before, right? Yeah. So that big puck.
Many
that's
times.
at the very end is doing a lot of that. And like people who
so you'll be feeling a bit of that until we start facing into the
we
swell.
shoot underwater scuba diving, if you're housing floods, you lose the whole thing.
Yeah.
So you have to be very, very careful in handling these and the O-rings, and it requires a special rig. These cameras, it's hard to describe. They're probably, what are they, like 3 feet long, Dan? And what is that? Like
The size of a,
14 inches around.
We're using a 5-gallon bucket for a lens cover.
Yeah, our lens cap is a 5-gallon bucket.
I remember that.
And they weigh 65 pounds maybe in air.
They're heavy.
Yeah, they're heavy. And inside there's an Ikegami box camera with a bunch of daughter boards on the outside, which basically convert the copper to fiber. And on the front of that is a Fujinon broadcast lens like you would see on a news camera. And all of that has been remotely controlled up or converted to these boxes that I'm sitting in front of.
So if you're listening at home, kids, there's your project.
Yeah.
Make the
then
camera.
If you want to sit in front of these same controls, check out our, I think it's Join Us on the website come November, December. Come into port. We're going to bring on a video engineering intern. He'll be sitting here standing watches and running these cameras next leg.
He's for sure going to be here?
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah, talked to him today.
Sweet.
All issues resolved, ticket in hand.
Perfect.
That light, can you turn that light a little bit? Thank you. It's like this real beacon in the
star.
back.
Yeah.
It's
These are
shining
nice,
up
these
here and
new,
reflecting off of the screens.
These new little lights are
Thanks,
LED,
Lonnie.
which is why they don't get warm. And they're very nice.
The new incandescent technology?
Quite bright.
Those lights? It'd be kind of cool to have a few Edison bulbs in here just to
That
set
would
the
be
mood.
so cool, yeah.
I have 3 switches over here to turn it on. I can't quite figure out.
Right.
Yeah, 3 here as well. Click, click.
That's why
You have to look around the corner and ask Peyton.
the mate up on the bridge keeps going, knock it off. Whoever's doing that.
You ready for an S42B factoid?
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. Hit us up, Lonnie.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the leading edge of the wing has a retractable platform so that when the plane is in the water, all the engines can be serviced by standing on this platform that retracts into the leading edge of the wing. I think that's pretty cool.
That is very cool.
I wonder if that's like, there's probably a bad comparison, but you see people with like a camper or like an SUV where they
One
open
fish.
the door and the little step
Yeah.
comes out. Yeah.
Can't believe I missed a
Smart
fish.
engineering.
They had everything going on that wing. A platform that comes out, all the fuel.
Anchor and windlass.
And we did actually go back and look, and they did have that type of landing gear that you had to like leave at home. So they would bring out this sort of landing gear and be able to stick it on the sides in case it wanted to come up on land.
Hmm. Oh.
And they could push the plane sideways as well.
So you said again their platform is in the leading edge of the wing.
Yes.
So outside of the 4 engines on either side.
Yeah, retractable work platform, the leading, and the wing's leading edge.
Is that hydraulic?
Probably.
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 Yeah. So what on this plane would have been hydraulic?
The flap actuator.
Flaps were hydraulic.
Can I just say, actually, flap actuator is one of those names where it should be like flux capacitor.
Yeah.
That
Flux
makes an
capacitor.
airplane sound
Here, can
really
I see
weird.
your phone?
Flap actuator.
Hmm.
I feel like you have to do something cool if
It's
you
like
have
the
that
same
name.
thing.
I think so too. What does a flap
Engage the flap
actuator do?
actuator.
Actuates the flap.
What does that mean?
Operates.
Okay.
Look, we found it. There it is.
Yeah.
Ed, you've worked on the Okeanos as
Yeah,
well,
I have
correct?
done that. Yeah.
It was the low
we
frequency
have a
image.
question coming in about the
definitely a
difference
low
between the
frequency.
camera capabilities of Hercules and Okeanos' ROVs.
Assuming they've made no changes, same cameras.
Where'd you get that
Some
picture
cameras?
online?
Um,
Or off
Same
the
cameras.
off our website?
Hold on. Man. All right, so D2
Oh, he
has
took a picture of a
Zeus
picture.
Plus. There's a mini Zeus somewhere. I think it's the brow camera is a mini Zeus.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas we have, what's our? Ours is different.
yeah.
I think they're using a mini Zeus for a brow cam. Our brow cam, which we call bubble here for some reason, is different. But D2 or Sirius has a Zeus Plus as well. So same.
Just different.
Yeah.
Top
Their
cameras.
their lights are drastically different than ours.
Mm-hmm.
Drastically
That's
different.
what
I
actually
counted
I was
30
about to say.
something.
Because
Yeah.
I've noticed that difference
So,
in sites that we've been
um,
looking at.
Before I
They-
lost count.
They have a lot more light on D2, but they let you spread it out. It's kind of hard to describe. Behind the manipulators on starboard and port,
Mm-hmm.
there's a pole that's probably a little bit more than a meter long with 4 lights at the end of it, or 2. And that pole can
There's 4. It's a
swing
light boom.
outboard and be extended to the left and the right side of the ROV.
Oh, that's cool.
And then turn as well to aim the lights. And on the top, there's also lights directly above the center of the ROV.
Mm-hmm.
And those can boom up and arc until they're outboard. And then they can be swung in and out and be aimed at the end as well.
So like big light antennae.
Yeah, so you're getting the
Yeah.
light further away from the sensor,
Uh-huh.
which gives you a better image.
One
In
of the-
addition, their version of Argus is a 2nd generation iteration of it,
Mm-hmm.
almost. It's really based, it looks exactly like Argus. Except one of the improvements they made is they doubled the lights.
Yeah.
So when you're flying D2 and you puppy off chasing something and you want to come back to get under Sirius,
Mm-hmm.
you can see the light pool.
Mm-hmm.
You know where Sirius is just by looking ahead of you. You can see the lights coming down.
Yeah.
So D2 is operating in that light pool, and you get that's certainly helpful.
That's
But
one of
that's
the
a much
reasons
newer unit.
why
Yep.
we had such a good 3D model for the B-29 that we were looking at, was just the light capability of that ROV.
Yeah,
It
it's
made
got
it
nice
so
lights.
easy. It's really nice.
And you know, the field just keeps being advanced and advanced. The modern manipulators now have cameras in the wrist, so you get nice close-up views of what you're doing. You don't have to be seeing through a bunch of muck.
Yeah.
It helps you really visualize when you're doing ocean engineering work. putting platforms down, plugging in ODTI connectors, etc.
I think the most useful view of like most of the time is that just that upper brow cam view.
Yeah.
Because you can really get a sense of like scale, right? You see the whole front porch, you see like all of your tools, the manipulators.
And
that's
so
very
that's
frequently used.
what Summer's talking about is a camera. It's called bubble here, which I don't understand because every other ROV I've worked with, it's called brow.
Yeah.
Or bumper.
But it's directly
function.
at the top center of the ROV, looking down, and it's a camera that's aimable in one fashion or another usually. And it's super helpful because it allows the pilot, by looking at the main camera and that camera, to in their mind's eye synthesize a 3D view to know how far out have I reached with that manipulator. So you can kind of judge by the scale by looking at the forward-looking camera, but for the above shot will tell you am I past the object I'm trying to pick up or not far enough, etc. So those two views are super helpful.
Reducing the parallax error.
Yes.
Or the, oh darn, I just crashed into it.
Parallax error.
Parallax is looking at something from off angle.
Oh, okay. Skewed.
So early motion picture cameras, including the ones I learned on, you didn't look through, when you look through there wasn't a way to look through a viewfinder to see what the film was being exposed to. So they had a separate offset lens on the camera that you would look through, but you knew it was offset. So you knew I'm going to see a little bit more to the left and a little bit less of the right. And you had to mentally compensate for that parallax. I think those were the Bolex, I can't remember the model number, that had, and if you had a camera, early cameras, you probably remember this from seeing like the old motion pictures. They had a turret lens, they had a wide lens, a medium lens, and a tele lens, and they rotated around to choose lenses. And the viewfinder also had 3 tiny lenses that you would have to rotate around and make sure they were both on the same setting so you knew what you were getting. It's a long time ago. And then I moved from those Bolex up to the Aeroflex line. So the Airy S, the Airy M, the Airy BL. And that was a whole different world because you would shoot your vision on one device, like the Airy BL, and then you would have a sound recorder, like a Niagara 4, and with a crystal lock sync between them to keep them going at the same speed. And you recorded your audio with one device and your vision with another. And then you would have to keep those through the entire production process locked together through editing, through everything. They also came out with cameras that could record audio onto a magnetic stripe on the film as well. So then it just stayed locked. You didn't have to do anything. There's optical audio for prints. And it's funny because, you know, even from stuff, was it 3 or 4 decades ago, you have the same issues today in production and post-production, and there's computer power to solve it and sort it out and let you know, hey, it looks like your audio's out of sync. It's still a concern.
That's
that double system sound. And it's not a bad way to go because you use a best-of-breed solution. You're buying a great audio recording solution that really fits your use case, and then you're getting a great imager. And then you sort it all out later. But yeah,
Nothing.
the TLDR is shooting at the bottom of the ocean is hard.
And Ed is a wizard.
Who's open for pizza tonight?
I ordered the drone already.
Oh, sweet.
It's on its way.
Yeah.
Okay, this $1,000 pizza's on you.
when I got up here to the van to relieve Michael yesterday, he was like, "Oh, rumor is it that there's pizza?"
Oh, yes.
I was like, "No."
That's absolutely true. There is a rumor, and we started it. Zooming in. Unknown.
Mud. Mud.
Is that what we were talking about last time, that when he zooms, it actually affects the meso? That's so crazy.
Does it still do that?
Yeah. There it is.
Yeah.
It also affects the,
Does it affect you too? Oh, yeah, it does.
yeah,
does, yeah.
look at,
Ugh. I think that's the noise of the servo motor on the
Yeah,
lens.
must be.
probably.
The acoustic noise. I wonder if I zoom slower. Well, I don't want to mess up the data, but I'm going to start a
No, we're on
slow
a
zoom.
turn.
We're in a turn. Now is the
This is
time
a
to
very
experiment.
slow zoom.
Yeah.
See a
So
little
it
bit,
doesn't
but not-
affect.
Yeah, it looks like.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like
it
when you
definitely
first
still
start.
affects us.
Yeah.
All right, coming
It's
out
not
quick.
too bad, but
Yeah.
that area definitely has a lot more noise.
Enhance. Enhance.
Oh.
Something that's going south in there, because apparently it didn't. That's a new phenomenon.
Actually, it looks like it only affects the lower frequency, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is what we were getting when the light was on too. It only
It was
affected
getting,
the lower
Yeah,
Uh,
maybe Ed's onto something. It is the motor, because
The zoom,
figured it was acoustic.
they were losing control of the focus.
And we couldn't reproduce it
Near
on
and
deck,
far.
so that means
Right,
it's not electrical.
it's definitely acoustic.
Yeah.
So the sound
And
of
if
the
I
servo
practice
motor.
long enough, I could probably spell my name in the side scan.
Yeah, I played with it on recovery, and I couldn't get it to do it on
Yeah.
deck either. So
Spell your name.
try and turn the sonar ping.
Man, mine's only 2 letters. 3 letters can't be that much harder.
Some of the early electric vehicles had the same thing too. The thruster
Oh.
controller, when you blip the verts, it would turn the sonar pink.
Mm.
Oh, yeah.
Bubbles.
And just by moving it a foot away, the motor controller from the sonar head alleviated the, it's still there, but it wouldn't turn it like solid pink. So it was some harmonic and a factor of distance. So.
So, Rennie, I'm trying to call up HiPAC, but I keep getting this blue Etch-a-Sketch.
Yeah, that would be because of the bow thrusters. The bow thruster working
Yeah.
pretty hard to change heading there.
So
knocks
this-
our USBL signal around.
This line we're coming up on, is this the last of the southern lines?
Yeah, we have
there are
3 more.
There are
Oh,
2 more after that.
They never ever end.
Right.
My headings come around.
Right, yeah, I
Good
think you're still
auto.
crabbing, because if you look at the general USBL, as it's been going south this whole time.
Yeah.
So it's hard to guess, but I wouldn't think that we've actually made any motion, just given by how laid back. No eastward motion yet.
We need to make a Simone Clipper Mountain Dew commercial for your pipe.
Ah, yeah.
It'd be nice to.
He's actually just been driving in manual. Man.
Yeah.
Ready for another factoid?
Yes.
Yes.
How long, we'll take guesses, what is the takeoff time from dead calm for the Samoan Clipper?
Say it again?
What is the takeoff time from in dead calm
Solve the problem.
for the Samoan Clipper?
Oh, takeoff time.
You-
Distance, we want to do time?
Time.
Awesome.
All right, time.
8 minutes.
It's not a riddle.
What would his brother say?
Yeah.
At the fork in the road.
Yeah.
I'd say like All 4 engines are revving. It's a heavy piece of metal, fully loaded.
We're not taking load into consideration
Right,
here.
so
just the aircraft out of the plant.
It's still pretty large and heavy with the engines.
So why don't you put your auto heading back on and head over to 080.
Roger.
My guess is 5 minutes. That's
I'm
what
gonna
I
say
think.
like, I'm gonna say like, yeah, I'll half that, 2.5.
Ooh.
This is absolutely astounding. 35 seconds.
What?
Wow, are you
Wow.
serious?
35 seconds
Powerful
takeoff
engines.
time from
Wow.
dead calm.
Yikes.
35 seconds.
Yeah, so
This
those
is
engines
performance, and this is the performance page.
are powerful.
With 4 engines. Yep, our plane.
Some of the Navy boats, like the big PBM Mariner, had jet-assisted takeoff packs, and you could literally just strap these, I guess, pretty much jet
Rockets.
packs onto the side of your flying boat.
I think you could do that on C-130s too.
You can do
Yeah.
as well, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that they're the 2 planes that did it. So there are some pictures that just have this flying boat taking off the water in this like 45-degree angle, which looks really strange. With this rocket strapped to either side of it. It looks really cool. And it was a massive flying boat.
It always cracked me up shooting footage on the flight deck of a C-130 when I was in the Army, because it's just got this massive control yoke and an even larger engine controls. And then when they actually do land and get, you know, their speed under control, the nose gear steering is a small circular disc about the size of a 50-cent piece maybe, with a little pipe sticking up, and you grab that and almost with your pinky sticking out, you daintily steer the nose gear of this massive area. It's
So
just
like
a
rudder
little tiny
pedals?
thing.
Or I guess that's for they
it's
steer.
a little
they,
tiny thing that you steer the nose gear
well, that's
with.
kind of, that's
Yeah.
funny.
And the difference between those controls and the others is striking.
Yeah. Maybe they just had a budget cut and we're like, all right, we need to make this as small as possible.
You have to put your pinky out.
Yeah.
We spent all the money on the big controls and throttles.
Pinky promise with the plane.
We haven't mentioned on SPL this leg at all, but this is another one of our legs this year. The second one this year, happy to say, where Argus is unmanned.
Because it's woman.
Yeah, because we have
Whoa, man.
Wendy, Alyssa, and Summer
Mhm.
are flying Argus this leg.
It's pretty sexist, man.
I'm looking. I enjoy pointing that out because I think it's a great step, but I even more look forward to it not being necessary at all to mention that.
One day.
Yeah, one day.
Bridge nav. When we get into position on the line, we can proceed 1 knot along the line, bearing 080. Thank you.
If you're interested in helping with what Ed just said, come check out the Ocean Exploration Trust internship program. Come
It's a
and
great
join us.
internship, if I may say so myself.
We have one intern on watch right now, Mr. Peyton.
Hello.
There, now it's full on, permanent.
Excellent.
So Peyton, by the time you were
But I didn't seize
applied,
the end of the rope because I
you
had
weren't
no
even
thread.
done with your freshman semester.
No, I was.
First semester.
I think I applied at the beginning. That was in February, so it was at the end of winter quarter. So I was just starting to take some courses in college. Like I had taken some like high school courses that counted for credit, but it was my first few like actual marine science related classes. The one I took was about ocean carbon cycling and marine organic carbon. So one of the things we're talking about is how like marine snow, which is what we're seeing on the Argus cam right now, is one of the ways that carbon is transported from the atmosphere to the deep ocean in the sediment that we see at the bottom. And that course was taught by Anitra Ingalls at the University of Washington. Super interesting class.
Did you do running start?
I did not, but I did do a crap ton of AP classes.
All right. It's crazy now, and I assume other states are like that, where you can take college level courses at your local community college or institution.
Yeah,
while still
Georgia
in high school.
just instituted that
If
2 years ago. Move on when ready.
I see some kids now who are graduating from high school and getting their associates at the same time.
You can mark that the ship is online.
Yeah, it used to
Thank you,
be
Nav.
an early college system that a lot of states implemented where you'd have to go to a separate school, but now a lot of states are implementing it where they have partnerships with local community colleges, and starting from sophomore year or whenever you're ready, you can actually start taking those courses.
Yeah.
I think my understanding was in our state that you had to physically go to the local community college for those classes. I could be wrong.
Most cases you do. It kind of depends on your location.
Yeah.
It's a state mandate that Georgia be open to everyone. So I imagine some, especially some rural communities, are
There's
probably
a-
taking virtual school and classes.
There's a lot of places you can get education with an emphasis on aviation, either avionics or, manufacturing.
Or being in the tower,
just-in-time production.
controller.
Yeah.
It was a 2-year degree my friend did, and he's a air traffic controller. I was like, oh man, that's great. That'd be a cool job.
Embry-Riddle.
Yeah,
Embry-Riddle, of
Riddle.
course. Near our house, I'm located by by Boeing. So there's a lot of place, but even the community college has programs that are, focused on doing very specific things. They have great facilities with great, aircraft to work on. They feed into the Machinists Union.
At the Museum of Flight, actually, Boeing has even instituted this STEM and aviation-focused high school.
Yeah.
There's a lot of those starting to pop
There's a
up.
great, I know it's
Yeah.
super regional, but the facility near my house has a fantastic, if you're really in the plains, tour where you get to walk the 4 lines and see, and they're very different lines. One of them, 787 line, I think is the moving line. So the planes move at like 0.4 miles an hour for the 14 days they're in the plant. And they come in pretty bare and they leave in ready to fly almost.
I grew up right down the road from the Willow Run Airport.
Oh yeah.
The Willow Run plant.
Oh.
I'm amazed. I mean, you heard me talk the other day about how far aviation came from 1903 to 1968. And then you walk through an airport. I just did this in some airport I was recently in. I was walking somewhere and I looked at the gate and there was an A380 parked there. I just can't help but walk up close to the glass and just, stare at the nose of that thing. Like that's, I get the physics, but still, that's a large, those, if people don't know, those are the aircraft where there's 2 decks of passenger seating.
Yeah.
There's an entire road down below, and an entire cabin down below, and an entire cabin above it. And the aircraft's just been discontinued too. The economics of it just didn't quite work out. Now that you can do these, single aisle, long range, it's a little easier to fill that.
Yeah.
I think I flew on a couple of those double deckers. I think once when I was visiting family in Taiwan.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
They do the Pacific routes a lot. Yep.
Yeah, Fiji Airways had them. We've flown
Cathay
on them.
Pacific, do they have them?
I don't know if Cathay Pacific, Qantas has a bunch of them.
Singapore? I think Singapore Airlines has them.
Which one?
The last 747 commercial flight was this year, wasn't it? Commercial passenger flight?
I can't remember.
I think those are run. I love the 747. Those were great. Iconic too. They might. Yeah. There's those. Yeah, those things are parked all around Renton now. Can't park your car anywhere. There's 737 Maxes jamming up the parking lots.
Saw that.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
They're producing them but not delivering,
Right?
so they don't have places to put them.
Oh, like they're literally putting them in parking lots.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah, parking lots at Boeing.
wow, that's crazy. Yeah, I didn't think they were going down to the Walmart parking lot and putting in a 737 wing.
Well, there's a huge shopping center right next to that facility, so maybe trying to work something out.
Is that the one with the fries?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Southwest's entire fleet is 737s, right?
right. But it makes sense for an airline to, well, it does and it doesn't. If you
Standard.
homogenize your fleet,
Standardization.
then you only need one set of tools, one set of training, one set of blah, blah, blah. But then
What if something happens?
well, and you're not in a very believable negotiating position when it comes to price when you're locked into one manufacturer.
Yeah.
That's true.
If you spread your fleet between the two largest manufacturers, then you can always tell supplier A, well, we think we're going to go with B unless you can sharpen your pencil.
Yeah.
But when you're locked in, it's like, can you do any better? They're two very different
Please?
business positions to be in, so yeah.
Thanks for those of you joining us. If you're joining us from the East Coast, it's 10:21 where you're at, but it is 3:21 p.m. here off of the coast of American Samoa. We are continuing to search our area of about 2 square miles for any signs and dive targets that we might think could be related to the Samoan Clipper. We're about to start line number 3, which means we've got 2 more after this in the southern half of our search area. Hercules is not in the water and won't be for the next period of time as we continue to search this area, and then the science team will clean up the science and sonar that you see in channel 1, and they'll take a look and determine which ones we should revisit, and then potentially ultimately maybe go down and dive with Hercules to hopefully locate the wreckage.
Yeah, I'd say we're on the start of this line now. We're moving
right.
forward way
Line 3.
for
Thank you.
for Argus. Yep. Yeah. If you ignore all the USBL madness, it actually looks pretty good.
Looks like a boomerang.
Yeah.
So a question came in earlier about if we plan to try to recover the wreckage, and the answer to that is no. We have no idea at the moment where exactly the wreckage is, or what type of shape it is in, or pieces, and the amount of time and technology to do that is not in the scope of this mission.
Let me say a little bit about that too. There's a lot more to consider beyond just recovering an aircraft or recovering something archaeologically from the ocean. If we would have recovered any sort of aircraft, I know that people have seen aircraft that are supposedly recovered and restored in museums, but once an aircraft has been in salt water for a long time, the materials, the aluminum and all of the other materials on an aircraft are actually affected, wholly and fully affected by that salt water. When you see recoveries in museums today, those are more often than not brought up out of freshwater, and more often than not, most if not all of the pieces are replacements, meaning it is a full restoration. And in some cases, they pretty much just take the data plate off of a wreck and put it on a brand new airplane and call that airplane the actual airplane. I'm over-exaggerating in some cases, but when an aircraft is brought up out of salt water, it needs to go through an extensive saltwater treatment to leach the salts out of it, to repair some of the damage that has been done, to consolidate what's left, get all of the corrosion products out of it, and then that airplane has to be stabilized in order to exist into the future. So all of that takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of space to do this sort of treatment, and it takes a lot of money. So whenever you see anything about aircraft recoveries or restorations from saltwater or even terrestrial ones, please know that it's not that simple. There are not museums waiting around the world to take these projects on. There are not billionaires waiting around the world to fund these projects, and it's actually quite difficult.
And for us with the Samoan Clipper project, there's the human element. We're approaching this with a great amount of respect because this is the final resting place for this crew. So we're also keeping that in mind.
That's a good point.
And what a distinguished crew they had.
All-star crew.
Yeah, Lonnie, yesterday you'd mentioned just the laundry list of accomplishments these men had achieved in their time in aviation.
Are you asking to hear that again?
Oh, I'm sure our viewers would love to hear it again. That was 24 hours ago.
Time flies.
Time flies.
Well, I need a little bit more light.
Oh,
Sorry.
no, that's
Dan.
okay. Well, I'll put this out to Dr. Megan in case she knows while you look up that information. We have a question coming in about when they started calling flying boats seaplanes. There was a time where that just became the norm or the common vernacular.
Sorry, what was the question?
We have a question about the time when flying boats started becoming called seaplanes.
We talked a little bit about this yesterday, or in our last watch. I don't even know if that was yesterday.
I think it was yesterday.
But flying boats and float planes are both in the category of seaplane. A seaplane is a type of an aircraft, and flying boats are one of those two types. So when we talk about seaplanes and why aren't things called seaplanes, I think that basically we still do call them seaplanes. And maybe the only distinction is that we don't really have very many flying boats anymore. We have more float planes now than we do flying boats. I think that the only flying boats left are firefighting planes. So maybe our vernacular switched to that because the majority of them are float planes. Basically, that's my answer.
Sounds reasonable.
And she's sticking to it.
That's right.
Yeah.
So back to the crew. This is a stellar crew. They all were in good physical condition. They had passed their physical examinations. They were all experienced with many flying hours and captained by Edwin Music, fondly known as Uncle Ed. Music had more than 13,000 hours of flying experience, more than 2,000 in Trans-Pacific operations, and 502 hours in the Sikorsky 42B in transatlantic operations. He was chief pilot for Pan Am, and he had been awarded the Harmon Trophy, which is a trophy awarded to the world's outstanding aviator. He actually had more flying honors and records than anyone else. He had set up a navigation school for Pan Am because he realized that the transoceanic pilots needed as much navigation experience and knowledge as Cunard captains. He hired Fred Noonan to help him to be actually the head navigator in the school. The first officer was Cecil Sellers. He had his federal transport pilot's license, class 3BC. He had 6,000 hours of flying experience, 464 hours in Trans-Pacific ops. Junior Flight Officer Paul Brunk had nearly 2,000 hours of flying time, 125 hours in the Trans-Pacific operations. Nav Officer Frederick McLean had been Eastern Division Navigation Instructor from 1935 to 39. He transferred to the Pacific Division and had 520 hours as navigator in Trans-Pacific operations. Radio Officer Thomas Finley had 765.
I'm gonna mark this one just
Yeah,
because
I'll take a break here.
we haven't in a while and
All
it
right.
looks cool.
All
Sorry,
right.
Lonnie.
Okay, no.
Yeah,
How many
This
off
is
to
this is
same
the
thing?
important thing.
It might be the same as this. How many off to starboard?
Okay. This is going to be target 46.
We actually already have this target.
We already have this target?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, mark it anyway in case the image is different. And
Okay.
you
Okay.
should. But
Can you?
Let's take a look at the image. What do we call the
All right. What's the
previous one?
distance?
100 to starboard.
Yep, that's almost dead on. Pretty much dead on.
Oh, that's cool. Oh, that's
I'll mark another target, and that way we'll have record of both.
Okay, thanks.
Those-
And we can compare the two images.
Those
Okay.
were my F-16s, I think. Weren't they?
What was the other target name?
3.
No.
No, different.
Nice try, though.
Yeah.
You can't claim that one.
And what's the target
Zooming.
number?
Target number?
46.
46. I actually think that that
Sorry, that was me.
larger blob we saw on the port side that we did not mark,
Right.
that just went by, I think that was this other one, target 4.
Oh, okay.
So I think that would correspond as well.
Okay.
And it
awesome.
did seem, in the Mesotech it was linear, it was 2 lines, but it was super stretched out because we weren't really up to speed yet.
Right.
But we do have a target mark there anyway, so there's no need to.
Well, those first, so because it's target 3, those were the first couple targets, and those were probably the rockiest ones.
Right, yeah. So let's see what 3 and 46 look like together.
Okay.
And see how much they match.
Let me pull it up after.
They would have been at
Peyton.
complete
You're done?
orthogonal. They would have been at perpendicular directions.
Target 3.
What?
Yeah, could be.
Yeah.
And then the target 4, just see what that looked like. Yeah,
Okay.
perhaps. Wait. We shall see.
Fine. We were just marking some targets. We were just marking some targets that we thought might be different than rocks. That when they turn up and look different than rocks, we
There's a trivia question out there to you. After Ed Music won the Harmon Trophy in 1935, does anybody know who won it the year after?
1935. So in 36?
In 36.
Let's see. Lindbergh had won it, I believe, already.
He won it in 27.
Oh.
Yeah, that's way back. Who
Is it a male?
next?
Yes.
I'm out.
Well, there's the Aviator Award, Aviatrix Award, and the Aeronaut Award.
Stumped.
Stumped. It was Howard Hughes.
Oh.
Oh, Howard Hughes.
Yeah.
That was a good trivia
Yes.
question.
That is a great
Very
question.
good.
Does anybody have any idea what year Amelia Earhart won it?
37.
35.
30.
32.
32.
Correct answer, 32.
32.
Well done.
Get the prize.
By the way, for that last target, I noted it as 3 similar shapes, fine lines next to thick bars with twin shadow humps.
Excellent.
Twin
Oh,
shadow
that's one of my
humps.
favorite
Very
haikus.
excellent.
Thank you.
like the ghost of a camel.
See, I'm just feeling more and more pressure because I'm looking at like Suna and Rebecca's notes, and they're very like detailed in their descriptions. And I look back at ours, and it's like electric